Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing on Thursday afternoon. Joining me from New York City, I believe, if I am seeing the background correctly, Tim Bontemps, you're at ESPN Seaport Studios.
That's correct. I had to come to this just in to talk about the streaking Brooklyn Nets, though they have now lost a game, finally.
Yeah, the Bulls. The Bulls, who were flaming mad at the last 2-minute report this week. Karma came around and they got one of their biggest wins of the year, breaking the Nets 12-game win streak. Bontemps, you were at the 76ers Pacers game on Wednesday night.
I was.
We may get into those teams in a little bit here, but as usual, you're never more than 12 hours from a game. Joining us from Dallas, Texas, is the one, the only Dan MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. I'm going to go see that contender that Bontemps abandoned. I shouldn't say abandoned, that Bontemps mercifully left last year, the Boston Celtics, this evening. Once folks hear this podcast, it'll be last night.
Yeah, that contender gave up 150 points.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about the Celtics when we get to that.
Listen, to the Celtics, the Thunder the other night.
As you fellas are aware, Bricktown can bite you, baby. Are
you implying that was the Bricktown flu?
There's a South Beach flu. There's a Scottsdale flu. Matinees in New York City. L.A. nightlife, and there's Bricktown, baby. How else do you explain giving up 150 when Shea sits?
it was the most points they'd given up in regulation in 30 years or something.
I think it was the second most in franchise history, and they've been playing basketball in Boston for a long, long time. But let's not get too bogged down in that. Other than discussing, there are some potential all-star starters who played in that game, and perhaps you could argue one who sat out that game. I think that's where we're going.
Yeah. So we are today. The NBA released the first batch of All-Star voting results. As a reminder, before we discuss this, the fans that are making these votes, they get 50% of the say. So these votes, which very often the initial batch of voting, very often it holds for the most part. There's sometimes some movement, and we'll talk about some places.
Every once in a while, there's little K-pop here and there.
But then the media gets 25% and the players get 25%. The media sort of acts as the backstop to prevent Zaza Pachulia from being named a starter. It's sort of the Zaza Pachulia rule, because the players only take it quasi seriously.
The players' votes are worst of them all, right? They're the worst of them all.
Yeah. And so I was going to say that everybody always complains when the media has any say in anything, especially when it comes to the bonuses of players in their contracts. And that's fine. You can think the media is evil. That's cool. But let's just say that when it comes to the media voting, it is the least of all the evils, because the fans are known to do some wild stuff and the players are known to do some wild stuff.
Don't tell that to certain MVP candidates.
Well, fine. But, let's just say that the evidence is that the fans and the players can't necessarily be trusted. Okay. So I want to start in the Eastern Conference.
Okay.
With the guards. Kyrie Irving.
I think we got to start in the front court. I think we've got to start in the front court in the East, because that's where you've really got some difficult decisions.
Do you?
Well, it's close. It's close. So 3 front court players will get voted as a starter. Durant, and let me just say, Durant and Kyrie lead the forwards and guards respectively. The Nets have obviously been playing very well, and that's probably contributing to why those guys are both in first place. But this just goes to how the Nets are not the most popular team in New York, but are a very popular team nationally.
The Nets might be the least popular professional team in New York, period.
Right, but
probably almost certainly are.
But they're the most popular New York team nationally.
Well, the craziest thing about this whole balloting is that Nick Claxton has more votes than Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle.
Wow.
That I would have never guessed.
Jared Allen.
Well, forget Jared Allen. He plays in Cleveland. I'm just saying the Knicks.
Well, Jared Allen was an all-star last year.
That's irrelevant. The point is the Knicks playing in New York with two guys who are averaging over 20 a game and playing well don't have either of them in the top 10. And Nick Claxton has more votes than both of them.
Don't let him shut down your Cavs talk here. That's some bullcrap, Bontemps.
The guy who has the most votes among all Knicks is Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose.
That's correct.
And he always will.
Derrick Rose's popularity just continues to shine through. Derrick Rose isn't even in the rotation, and he's got more votes than any other Knick.
I would be interested to see how many of those votes are from overseas and China in particular, because he's still phenomenally popular.
Might be a lot of them in Chicago. He might be the most popular Bull still, and he hasn't played there for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
But let's get to the starters here.
All right. So Kevin Durant is first with 3.1 million. He's got a 200,000 lead over Giannis. It's pretty safe to say that Durant and Giannis are probably going to go 1-2, either in that order or a slight flip. I don't think there's going to be much drama. Where the drama comes in is at the next spot, the third starting spot in the Eastern Conference. Joel Embiid edges out Jason Tatum by just a little over 100,000 votes. This is something that could flip. It's tight enough where it could flip once or even twice between now and the end of the month when this is decided. Jason Tatum is having a spectacular season, an MVP level season. When Bontemps did the straw poll less than a month ago, he was the favorite, narrow favorite, but favorite or leader. I shouldn't say favorite.
He was the leader.
Right.
That's right.
The leader. And the Celtics, although they've stubbed their toe a little bit in the last couple of weeks,
I would say they've stubbed their toe a lot more than a little bit. They have the 27th. They have the 27th best offense in the league over the last month, and they're
playing 500 basketball for a span of more than a month.
That's right.
Is that right? It's more than a month now.
They're 8-8 in their last 16 games, going back to the start of December, and they have the 27th ranked offense in the league over that stretch of time.
As we sit here today, they have the best record in the NBA, and they've had the best record in the NBA for the entire season. And Jason Tatum is a leader, if not the leader, for MVP, coming off of a sort of establishing playoff run. I know his finals weren't that great. Anyway, if the vote was taken today, Tatum would not be starting. Joel Embiid.
And obviously Tatum has played at an all-star starter level. As you said, he's played at a legitimate MVP candidate level. But you've got four guys here who have all played at legitimate MVP candidate levels. And you have three spots. I think if you want to argue, hey, this is another reason, more ammo for the case of going positionless on the All-Star ballot, especially since it's not even East versus West anymore. Absolutely. Right. But the simple fact of the matter is you have four absolutely deserving candidates for three spots. And you know what? Out of those four, I probably would rank Tatum as the number 4 guy.
I think it's a pretty easy call to rank him as the number 4 guy. And he's having an awesome year. It's no knock on him at all. But Joel Embiid is averaging more points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks than him per game. If you just look at those three guys and say, or is Jason Tatum better than Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, or Joel Embiid? I think maybe not everybody. I think most people would say he's not as good as those guys in a vacuum either. So, he's had an incredible year. He does deserve to start. But if somebody of those guys is not going to start, I think Tatum's a pretty easy call as the 4th guy.
Well, but yet Tatum is popular. The media voters like Tatum and have been impressed with his season to this point.
Well, the media voters also like Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I mean, the media voters do not like Joel. Excuse me, sir. The media voters do not like Joel Embiid.
The last 2 years, Mr. Hanlon.
Hold on a second. We are going to do some fact checking here. Brian is here trying to stir stuff up and be silly. Here's the facts of the matter. The votes for the straw poll were taken from December 9th to 11th, which is at the beginning of this Celtics collapse to being a 500 team that I will remind you has been the 27th best offense in the league over the past 16 games. Like, that's a pretty massive sample size. Celtics are going to be fine. They're going to start hitting shots. This is regression to the mean after having an insane shooting first 6 weeks. But Jason Tatum has been a big part of them coming back to earth over the past 6 weeks. While Joel Embiid just finished the month of December, averaging 35 points a game, shooting 55% from the field, shooting 42% from three. And in the segment of time we were looking at over the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, Joel had missed a big chunk of time with being sick. The Sixers had not played well, and he had an injury that had to miss a couple of games. So if you took the vote now, he would probably, I don't know if he'd be ahead of Jason Tatum, but he'd at minimum have a lot more votes than he had in the first poll, which, by the way, as I told him himself when I talked to him about this, in the first straw poll last year, he had 1/5 place vote. So, let's relax with the also, media voters don't vote for Joel Embiid, who, as MacMahon said, finished second in MVP each of the past
the media voted him as the Eastern Conference MVP each of the last 2 years. Don't they? Did he get a trophy for that? I'm just asking. Now, I will say this. If somebody wanted to say, hey, I can't decide between these four, they're all legitimate MVP candidates. I think we have 6 of those in the league right now. And somebody said, I can't decide. What's the tiebreaker? Well, Wendy, we're going to go to the participation ribbons.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well, Joel, at this point, only has 28 participation ribbons this year. The rest of those guys have 32, 36, 37. So if you want to go that route,
here's what I know.
We can go that
here's
route
what I
as
know.
a tiebreaker.
Here's what I know. Maybe the media needs the fans.
We got the hand pointing.
Maybe
Tim.
the media needs maybe the media needs the fans and the league to backstop them on Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid, I know he didn't play every second of every game, but he was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month.
I just said that.
Something right.
I just said.
Let me ask you this.
What?
Let me ask you this. How relieved are you, Bontemps, that when Wendy was pointing one finger at us, it was the index finger, not the one next to it? Because he wanted to.
I'm going to say he was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month, and the fans voted him ahead. They voted him in the top 3, whereas the media buried him yet again. That's all. Heavens. These are true statements. These are true statements.
It's not a true statement. I just literally
are you guys working on his jump hook in the gym this summer?
Anyway,
what's next? What are you adding to his repertoire?
Look, I understand the bit you're doing here, but this is ridiculous. I literally just explained why it is a bit. I just explained why it's a bit. And
especially when both of us said, hey, it's close. Tatum's the guy we'd leave out, but you're still getting all up in arms.
All right. Well, before we move on from the East front court, I want to point out that Paolo Banchero got more votes than Devin Booker. Yeah. Of course, Austin Reeves.
I thought you were going to get into a participation thing there.
But I was very surprised with the Banchero scored very highly. He got a lot of votes. I mean, he's 8th, but it's relevant that Paolo Banchero, playing on a team that gets no attention, that his play has generated some interest. Okay. For the Eastern Conference guards, we mentioned Kyrie is the leader. Donovan Mitchell, a strong second, pretty far ahead of James Harden, who's in third. This would be interesting, of course, because Donovan would potentially earn a starting spot, and he pretty much has earned it. But I will just say that whatever negativity that Kyrie Irving generated by his positions that he took earlier this year, it has not affected his All-Star voting standards, as he leads all East guards. And then secondly, Donovan is going to make his return to Utah Tuesday. That's when the Cavs are starting a West Coast trip, and they play in Utah on Tuesday. So he will sort of get his return there, but it is interesting that he potentially could be the starter, in Salt Lake City for the All-Star game. Which, I mean, I don't think Donovan.
He has to be a starter. He has to be a starter. Yeah. He's
the easy call as the first pick to be a starter. I don't think there's any question about that. He's been awesome all year. He's been there for the Cavs all year. He's taken his game to another level. Full credit to him. And I mean, look, he's also coming off scoring 71 the other night, right? Like, I mean,
with 10 assists.
I mean,
11,
yeah,
come on,
creating more points than anybody in a single game in NBA history except for Wilt. So, like, I mean, come on, he's the easy one. The better,
and they're up there in the standings. Yeah. So the second vote, to me, I think you got to decide between two guys, and we can. I'll apologize to DeMar DeRozan, even though he's really not a guard anymore. Trae Young has not been good enough to be in this conversation this year.
No, he's having a terrible shooting year.
Tyrese Halliburton is an honorable mention, but we're deciding between Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown for that second spot. And
interesting. I'm not sure I would have said Jaylen.
Really?
Okay, real quick, can I just make one before you get into this? I just want to say one more thing about Donovan Mitchell before we move on to that. I'm sorry, I'm just going back a little bit. The Cavs are 9-0 this year when Darius Garland doesn't play. He has had, I think, 3 different injuries. Right now, he's dealing with a hand injury. Last year, they were 7-7 when he didn't play. Respectable. He was probably their best player last year. But the fact that not only Donovan's just overall strong play is having the best offensive season in his career.
Best season, period.
Yeah, he is the 9-0 number, and also 6-0 in overtime. And in this last week, they've had 2 one-possession victories, one in Chicago and one home to the Suns on Wednesday night, where he basically, that wasn't the 71-point game. That was an overtime win.
Plus the 71-point game where he absolutely just took over.
Right.
Took over the whole second half in overtime.
I mean, the folks in Cleveland want Donovan injected into the MVP conversation. I don't think that's really going to happen just because of the depth of the field. But
he's also just not as good as those guys. Ultimately,
he's at the top of the second tier. I think there's 6 guys in the first tier, and Donovan's at the top of the second. But
that's not to diminish. Yeah, that's not diminishing him either. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
So,
but all right. Who Bontemps if not Jaylen Brown? I'm saying Kyrie or Jaylen Brown are the two that I'd be deciding between for that.
The other guy, the other guy I was looking at was Harden too. He's been really good.
Participation ribbons are a little bit light on that one.
But you can make that.
You could make that argument. Harden has been really good, leading the league in assists. Certainly not as efficient or prolific a scorer as he has been in the past, averaging a little over 22 a game. But, Jaylen Brown is the highest scorer of that trio on good efficiency, certainly the best defender of that trio. And then Kyrie, look, we've been over all the mess off the court. He still played in 28 games. He was part of a huge part of that 12-game win streak, averaging an efficient 26, 5, and 4.6 assists. Both those guys to me are significantly better candidates right now than Harden would be. And I would honestly, I'd put Halliburton above Harden.
Halliburton's in. I think Halliburton's in the mix too. Yeah, I do.
Well, I think Halliburton is probably going to get voted in because
I strong
as a reserve. Yeah,
I mean he's going to make the All-Star game, but he's not going to start. I'd say there's very little to no chance he's going to start.
Right.
It's just, when you're making it for the first time, you have to sort of barge your way in. Usually.
I think he has.
I don't think there's much debate about him making it. He'll definitely. I'd be stunned if he doesn't make it, especially with the way Indiana's been playing.
Only on one regional network is there, but there's no. This ain't Wally's World here, brother.
That's very true.
Okay, so I don't actually think there's going to be that much drama with the guards. I think Kyrie and Donovan are going to get the nods because I think while I think the media might have not have Kyrie as heavily in there, I think players respect Kyrie a lot, so I think he'll get a strong vote.
And he'll win the fan vote. They'll be.
I think it'll. Yeah, I think it'll come down really to how many media votes he gets. I mean, if he gets none.
Yeah, he's going to get some.
I think he will, but I'm just saying, let's say he gets a handful and he finishes 7th in the media voting. That if that's a quarter of the vote, it might be enough to pull him down below Jaylen or James Harden or somebody like that. That's all.
I think the votes are going to be too split up.
Yeah,
could be.
However,
he's going to have the most fan votes, and that's half the vote. So it would stand to reason he's probably going to start.
I would just say that, when you're looking at Harden, who's missed a lot of games, and Kyrie, who's done what he's done this year, some of those ballots from the media are going to be interesting.
Yeah, so it's not. This is not the sportsmanship award or the citizenship award or whatever. This is who's performed the best on the court this year.
Right.
And okay, so we go to the Western court. He did what he had to do to get back on the court.
That's true, and they're winning. That's a key component.
That's the biggest thing.
In the Western Conference, we'll look at the guards real quick. Look, it's going to be Stephen Curry and Luka Doncic. Mm-hmm. They have big leads. Luka has been on another planet. And even though Steph will have missed a bunch of games, his resume is been really impressive. The team's resume hasn't been, but come on, the guy's going to start. What I think is interesting looking at the West guards is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is basically got the same amount of votes as Ja Morant.
That's very surprising.
I'm not sure whether that's a result of the Grizzlies still not being in the appropriate national consciousness, or whether Shai has been so great that he has sort of demanded that he be on a lot of these ballots.
I've said for a minute that I think if Shai played on a team that was competitive the past couple of years, people would look at him in a similar light that they do to Ja. So to me, people having him with the same number of votes to Ja is recognizing that he's awesome. Like, I don't think it's a slight to Ja. He's, Shai is, I think you can make a good argument he's better than Ja. And that's like, they're both awesome. So,
if you're looking at points per game, obviously he's scoring more points. He's been more efficient. Boy, Ja's awfully good though.
No, they're both awesome. Yeah.
But that surprises me just because I do think Ja is somebody who really resonates with fans. Like you always see, as far as like social media, reaction, like Ja is always one of the top guys in terms, I don't know, whatever the hell metrics they throw out there. He's always, his highlights go bonkers, right? He's a highlight machine. Nike didn't give him a signature shoe, but for just because he's a nice guy. They gave him a signature shoe because they think he can sell a lot because.
Well, they also gave a signature shoe because they kicked one of their signature guys out.
Okay.
I mean,
this was also in the works before.
It was in the works long before that. The other thing to factor in here is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Right, but like they non-renewed Kyrie a year ago and decided a year ago that Ja was gonna do that.
The other thing to consider here too is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the face of the Canadian basketball program probably for the next decade, and he also is from the greater Toronto area, which is one of the biggest cities on the continent, and I'm sure there's a bunch of Canadian votes for him, which is
there's a bunch of Canadian votes for Andrew Wiggins apparently too, because
that's a Warriors thing, not a Canadian thing. We've seen that over time.
He's Canadian too. Let me just say before we start talking about the Western Conference front court that you guys have some blood on your hands here. Because
what now?
Your constant denigrating of Domantas Sabonis.
Okay, I don't even know what denigrating means. So use a word, dummy it down.
Your constant putting down of Domantas Sabonis, which is
I thought it was
fundamentally another not true statement. But we can discuss this. That's fine. Let's discuss it. Let's break it down.
Years in the making. Okay. The Kings are having like their best season in a decade.
Longer than that. They haven't made the playoffs in 16 years.
Okay, well, let's not say that they're in the playoffs yet.
Okay, but they're having their best. They're having their best season.
They're having their best season
years.
In nearly 2 decades. It's their best season.
The dude is absolutely annihilating competition on the offensive end.
He's having a great season.
19 points, league high, 12.4 rebounds,
12.5. But who's counting?
What?
12.5, but who's counting?
All right, 12.5. It leads the league.
Phenomenal passer, 6.7 assists.
Super fun to watch. Kings are maybe the best story in the league this year.
60 shooting. 62% shooting.
Okay, then stuff the ballot box for me. Needs to help because they ain't in the top 10.
Let's.
Are you really gonna say that Domantas Sabonis not getting a lot of votes playing for the Sacramento Kings is some sort of a media commentary?
Yeah,
seriously?
Don't blame us. Blame the beam lighters.
Excuse me, sir. He's not.
Do they have internet in Sacramento?
Apparently not. Kevon Looney has more votes than him.
Yeah, well, again, that's the
Offense
Warriors.
to Kevon Looney.
Zaza Pachulia almost got voted into the All-Star game as a starter because he played for the Warriors.
No, he didn't. He played for the Mavericks, you doofus.
You can't on one hand say, boy, the fans are really appreciating how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been. What is that, a big market in Oklahoma City? This Sabonis slander should not stand.
Well, the slander, it's not slander. He's just not getting votes. Now, if you want to make the case that he deserves to be seriously considered as an all-star starter, I will agree with you. He has been phenomenal.
Austin Reeves got more votes than De'Aaron Fox as well, by the way.
That's a joke. I mean, come on. And look, I don't have a problem with you saying Sabonis could potentially be voted, at least media-wise, as the number 3 starter in the front court. I think he has a case, especially because Zion's about to miss a ton of games.
And Anthony Davis is missing a ton of games.
Yeah, I think you can make a strong case for Sabonis there, and that Fox deserves to be a reserve. I mean, look, the Kings are having a damn good season, and both those guys are performing at all-star levels. All the slander and whining and crying, I don't understand.
Well, I'm tweaking grumpy a little bit. Obviously, I'm just saying,
I mean, I would say you're going beyond tweaking. I mean, the fundamental argument here. Let's have a discussion. The fundamental argument here, from the beginning, has been the Kings traded away a premium young player at a premium position for an older player on his second contract at a non-premium position. That's been the discussion from the beginning. They also traded away Buddy Hield in that trade, who is a guy who who we've talked for 6 months about whether the Lakers are going to trade 2 first-round picks for him and Miles Turner. Right?
Buddy Hield's one of the best 3-point shooters of the last decade.
So the Kings traded a terrific 3-point shooter and a premium young player who's going to be an all-star on a rookie deal and will be eligible for a supermax, possibly.
Maybe.
For a guy who's on his second contract who plays a non-premium position. It's not a knock on Domantas Sabonis or that he's not a good player.
I'll say this. If Sacramento gets an extension done with Sabonis, then the deal's not a complete disaster. I still don't like it, but it's not a complete disaster.
Also,
it's okay.
Why? Well, also, unless the league changes the Domantas Sabonis is like the Jaylen Brown example of why
that's right.
The league's in a weird spot on the extension rules. Because frankly, if you're Domantas Sabonis right now, why would you extend? He'll probably lose money on the deal. Almost certainly will lose money on the deal. So, that's another part of it too. They might have to deal with him being a free agent in a year. Now there's a chance that'll get fixed in the CBA, but yeah, I mean, you are trying to come up with all sorts of straw mans today, but I think that's you're reframing the whole discussion about this trade in a completely different way.
No, this is kind of like the Embiid Jokic thing. You think that because I think it's ridiculous that Embiid is ruled out of MVP voting because of a couple of injuries, I didn't like Jokic. You think you guys think
ruled out as the runner-up.
Also, no one said you don't like Jokic. It's just all about your position. You guys have said that 100 times. 100 times. It's not a judgment on the trade. The trade, I think Indiana won the trade. It's just that people acted like Sabonis stinks. He doesn't stink. So looking
I would
at
say
the
that's the straw man. I don't think people argued that he stinks. People argued that they traded a young potential all-star guard for a guy at a non-premium position, which they did.
Well, Sabonis is going to make his third all-star team, and this time it's going to be in the West, which you've said you've put down as Eastern Conference all-stars.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? It's funny. The Western Conference all-stars this year are the former Eastern Conference all-stars. If you look at some of the guys who are going to be getting in.
If Sabonis was still in the East, he might not make it. But actually, he probably would. But it would be tight.
It'd be tight. It'd be tight.
LeBron leads the West. He's going to make his 19th All-Star game. He's going to start. By the way, this is a statement that you guys are going to use against me. So let me try to say it as as closely as I can to what I mean.
No, I see the wheels turning.
Once you accept that the Lakers are not a good team, which a lot of people have had.
I can't wait to see where this goes.
Once you accept that the Lakers are not a good team,
do we all accept that?
We do, but there's a lot of people who started. I'm
just making sure we're all on the same page. We see
the people who don't accept that are the ones who voted Austin Reeves as an all-star starter. So get on to your next point.
It's the reason why Russell Westbrook is still the leading candidate for Sixth Man of the Year, because people are putting their money down on it. Like, the Lakers are doing okay, guys. They're fighting. They're probably performing under the circumstances about as good as they can. And
sure, they're a borderline play-in team. That's what we all
that's
said
where their
the
talent is.
Started.
I mean, congratulations on trying hard.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, it's a clap. Here's a clap. Here's a clap for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, look, here's what I'm going to say. There were years when LeBron was in Cleveland where that team got to the second round, and that was absolutely the best possible case for those teams. And LeBron got him there because he maximized what the team has.
Are you saying if the Lakers this year?
Seriously, if the Lakers make the play-in, which is a huge if, that may be a really good season. That may be as good as they could.
No one here is arguing that. By the way, MacMahon, Zaza Pachulia was on the Warriors when that.
No, he
happened.
wasn't. I talked to him about it when he was in Dallas.
I'm
bird.
I looked it up. Bro. He almost got voted in when he was on the Warriors, and then they changed the rules.
Well, that's fine. It also happened when he was in Dallas.
Okay. By the way, I have a trivia question. Also,
go ahead, please. For the ones who get it done, Grainger offers high-quality supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as access to product specialists who have the knowledge and experience to answer your toughest questions. Plus, their commitment to being your safety partner can help you keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call or click Grainger.com or just stop by.
Now it's time for Hoop Collective Trivia.
It's about Brian's favorite player. Joel Embiid. Joel is the first center to have multiple 50-point games in a season since blank.
Brain.
Good one.
Shaq.
Nope. Both no. No Kareem, no Shaq.
Wilt's too easy of an answer. By the way, look at that, you big dodo bird. You see that? That's my smiling mug writing a story about Zaza Pachulia almost getting voted into an all-star game when he was in Dallas. Goodness sakes. I looked it up.
I'm literally looking at it right here.
You're too dumb to Google.
I'm Googling it right
bro.
Now. Looking at it.
January 21, 2016.
I think you're both right. I think year Zaza,
but he's telling me I'm wrong.
Zaza kind of got close the 1 year, and it was such a joke that
he finished fourth among Western Conference front court players when he was with the Mavericks.
When three got in,
it's a great feeling. Zaza told me. I have a bunch of smiles. It's all good vibes.
So he finished fourth again in 17. That's what happened.
Shout out to the Republic of Georgia, playing for a college football national championship next week. No tailgating, by the way.
Anyway, back to the trivia question. No Shaq, no Kareem, no Zaza.
Oh, it's not Zaza?
Damn. It is not.
What was the question? 2 50-point games in a season?
Multiple 50-point games as a center in a single season. First center since
David Robinson.
That is the answer.
I figured probably the year. Well, he won. I was thinking centers who won a scoring title.
94.
And he definitely finished that year with the what did he get that game? Was it
70?
He had 70 something. 70 something. Was it 70 on the nose? Yeah.
On the last day of the season to win the scoring title.
Yeah, when it was basically like, let's feed the big man to win a scoring title.
He had 71 actually also.
Was it 71? Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, back when I was a kid, 50-point games were rare. now they happen like every 4 days, but
no. Now, like last night, there wasn't one. It's like, what the hell, man? Off night for the NBA.
Right. I know.
Well,
like,
Clay goes for 54, and it's like a footnote that night.
It was, and it was correctly a footnote.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, so this season, I was looking this up the other day because I was talking about this with Adam Himmelsbach from the Globe. This season's already had the 12th most 40-point games of any season. And it's well over halfway to smashing the season record.
Tell me what you told me about this. The record is from 1961-62, but tell me the key about that season that you told me the other day.
Well, I don't have the exact number in front of me. It's around
ballpark it.
No, it's around 140 games that season that someone scored at least 40 points a game. He had, I believe, 65 of them. Wilt by himself that season ranked like 30th all time among all NBA seasons in terms of 40-point games in a year.
I might botch this, but our stats and info group had a little nugget the other day that there's already been, I want to say, more players here it is. There have been 6 players already to score 55 or more. That's already the most in NBA history for one season. Not 55-point games overall, but players who've scored 55. Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And 3 of those are since Christmas. I mean, it's insane.
Doesn't Giannis have 2 50-point games?
No, that's 55. 55 plus.
Right, but I think he's got 2.
Luka had 3 in a week.
Jeez. So anyway, in the Western front court, LeBron's 1.
Well, here, by the way, just one thing on that, just because I looked this up while we were talking. There's been 19. That was actually from last year. There's been 14 50-point games already this season. The record in a non-Wilt season is 23. So we're gonna surpass that pretty quickly. You
interrupted Windy on his podcast to blurt out that. Windy, take the wheel, Take the wheel, Windy.
Just saying, we're in some unprecedented situation.
Two-time defending MVP Nikola Jokic is second in the front court. Now, in third, which would get a starting nod, you have Anthony Davis, who they're just not putting a timeline on. Like,
right.
He was really good and was playing all-star level.
Mm-hmm.
But then in fourth was Zion, who was coming on strong, and now Zion's out at least 3 weeks.
And same thing, playing really well, certainly playing at an all-star starter caliber level. But like, hopefully he's back before then, but we don't know that.
I mean, he's getting reevaluated in 3 weeks, let alone coming back in 3 weeks.
Right.
I think the next most deserving guy is Sabonis. After that, I think Lauri Markkanen is the next most deserving.
Well, I will say this. So
I think you're skipping one pretty notable guy, I would say. That's Paul George.
Well, Paul George has been hurt a bunch of games and he's hurt again. But Paul is going to get in, I think. But I will say this.
He's played as many games as Zion and more than AD so far.
Well, that's true. And Zion's not exactly going to be pressuring him.
Yeah, and those guys aren't going to play any games at all.
But as far as voted in as a starter, I think either AD or Zion is going to end up getting voted in. So I don't know what's going to happen there. So Andrew Wiggins is fifth. That's the Warriors vote carrying him. He is not an all-star this year. Paul George is sixth. Lauri Markkanen is seventh. Now, we could potentially have something interesting. It's not very often that you see a trade where both teams acquire an all-star.
Right.
Well, it is definitely within the realm of possibility that you're going to see Donovan Mitchell and Lauri Markkanen both in the All-Star game, and you're going to see Sabonis and Tyrese Halliburton both in the All-Star game. Both those trades made within the last year.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say that's
say it's a good chance to happen. Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's likely. There's a real chance, like you said. It's not impossible that Markkanen is starting the All-Star game.
You're right.
Starting? Why? Because they're going to pick an injury replacement. They want to put a Jazz player in.
If Zion and AD might end up both ahead of him, they both might not play in the All-Star game with injuries.
Well, Zion should be back by the actual All-Star game.
Possible.
Let's hope.
It's 5 weeks basically with a hamstring injury. Like he could be back.
But if AD is not back, which they're not putting a timetable, so I don't know. I know that AD's injury is to the navicular bone. It's a stress reaction to the navicular bone. And let me just say, you don't want to break the navicular bone. So whenever you hear anything with that, you're going to be cautious.
My only point was that if you look at it, if AD and Zion are both injury questions, and then I would say it's probably going to be one of Paul George, Markkanen, or Sabonis. If you're just going by in terms of like who deserves the spot, wild.
And the Jazz PR sent out some really cool posters of Markkanen, although I didn't get one. Where's my finisher poster?
I have one.
Derek?
I have one at my house. I have one at my house.
I
will also say,
crap.
and this is not a knock on either Markkanen or Sabonis, who have both been terrific this season and are going to be deserving All-Stars. It does go back to what I said before. There's just way more talent in the East right now than in the West when you look at some of the choices that are going to be made for some of these final couple of spots. Like the fact that either of those guys is going to start in the All-Star game and either Jason Tatum or Joel Embiid is not.
Yeah.
Or even that Zion or AD at this point is going to start in the All-Star game and Jason Tatum or Joel Embiid is not. It's not really much of a debate about who should be.
That's fair. Markkanen, though, I mean, credit to him. He's an
incredible season.
He absolutely should be an all-star. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's averaging about 24 a game, 53% from the floor, 42 plus from 3-point range. Nobody expected
42 plus on 7 attempts a game. I mean, he's been incredible.
When you punch into StatHead like how much he's scoring and his efficiency, it's not a very long list that pops out.
By the way, you mentioned Sabonis earlier on a contract extension. Lauri Markkanen is eligible for an extension this summer.
Another guy who, based on what he's making, I think he can probably do a lot better than that.
Well, that's a fascinating question as to what Lauri Markkanen should do. I would say he's in a pretty similar position to the one that Julius Randle was in a couple of years ago, where Julius had an incredible season, best season of his career to that point, was an all-NBA player, right? And he took the max extension he could get and has been, last year he struggled. This year he's been better, but might get that contract if he was available now, but decent chance he wouldn't. I think that's going to be it's going to be a pretty fascinating question for Markkanen and his representatives to think about, is if they get offered the max extension they could take this summer, do they jump on it or do they wait? I think you could make an argument either way, at least based off how he's played so far. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I will say this. One thing that is interesting is that the Jazz are going to have to pay somebody.
Oh, they want to pay Markkanen, clearly.
Well, also, you've got Jordan Clarkson, who is extension eligible. We talked about that with Bobby Marks on the pod that came out on Monday. But like, if you're Lauri Markkanen and you're like, well, look, if I have another really good year, I might use the M word.
Well, the Jazz also potentially have the ability to renegotiate and extend him too, which could maybe get them up to a higher number than they otherwise would, based off the amount of.
I'd have to look at their cap sheet on that one.
Well, I'm talking about this summer, not today.
Yeah, and also that's a very good point. Renegotiation extension is a weapon they could use. It also depends on what they do at the trade deadline, with whether or not they're shipping guys off or if they're taking on money for picks or something like that. But Markkanen is an interesting situation.
I mean, you look at his contract going forward. He's got a $17.2 million contract for next season, and then he's partially guaranteed for $18 million a year after that. That's you talk about contracts around the league with the way he's playing. If he stays anywhere near the pace he's been on, that's one of the best contracts in the league. Which, when the Cavs signed it, even last summer when the Jazz traded for it, I certainly was not the biggest Lauri Markkanen fan at the time, but I don't think anybody in the league would have been looking at that as some kind of incredible value deal. And the way he's played now, it's quite clearly one.
Yeah, I do think regardless, he'll be in Utah for a while. How exactly that's figured out on the financial end, we'll see.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah. The depth at Western Conference front court, like, you can't put Kawhi in. Missed way too many games.
Yeah. Jeremy Grant, we got to talk about.
Yeah, I was looking at this last night. I was talking about this with our buddy Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob. I mean, you look at some of the options there. Jeremy Grant is one, as Tim just said. Aaron Gordon is one potentially. He's had a really good year. Like I said, I think you'd look at I think Paul George is obviously going to be in the mix there. If he plays enough games, maybe Jaren Jackson
Wood.
Jr.
I was going to say, I think you guys just got a text message. I'm not on that list, but I think you guys just got a text message about Christian Wood.
Well, Stan Van Gundy put him.
I was going to say Stan Van Gundy had him on his All-Star team at least.
Yeah. So, what are there 2 more rounds of this Bontemps? There's one more update, and then they finalize it.
I think they announce. I want to say they announce it twice more, and then they either announce it once or twice more, and then say who the starters are.
By the way, let me throw in. Did you say Jaren Jackson Jr.?
I did at the end. Yeah.
Okay. If he plays a bunch of games and plays really well, he obviously missed time to start a season. I think he would have to play really well over the next month to have a strong case.
Want to just point one thing out. Dame Lillard was 7th in the West amongst guard. Dame Lillard's having a really good year. Coming off that injury, he's going to be a lock to be a coach's pick. He's got less votes than Russ. Another, illustration of the Lakers, strength of the Laker fan base. Lillard has been really good. Pending health, there's going to be some interesting calls on that guard front for one of those last spots too, because the wild card positions are going to go to the guards.
I had 9. I went through it last night. I had 9 locks, just regardless of position or voting or anything. Jokic, Ja, Zion, Luka, Dame, Devin Booker, Steph, Shea, and LeBron. And if you count AD, if you want to say AD / Zion are both going to get in, whether one of them's voted in as a starter and then the other one makes it, that's 10. So you got 2 spots left over after that.
Yeah, but there's some guys who just, we didn't mention Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram, if he was healthy, I think would be.
Yeah, he's only played 15 games though.
Yeah, well, he's not going to get, but he's off the list.
Yeah, Cat and Gobert. Gobert hadn't played well enough. Cat neither has he played well enough or enough. Period.
CJ McCollum is probably going to get some looks for one of those spots. But again, those 9 guys I listed, if you put in AD and as a 10th guy, you don't have Market in there, you don't have Sabonis in there, you don't have Paul George in there. So, that's before you start looking at any of these other guys.
Yeah, it's because of the injury, the way the injuries have gone. The West team is a little bit wonky, so we'll see. But all right, thank you, gentlemen. It's always fun to have very intellectually based, robust conversations with you about really important stuff like
I feel like you're denigrating us with your sarcasm right now.
Excellent application of new knowledge there.
I would say some of us are having intellectual discussions, MacMahon. I'm not sure I would count certain people as part of that, though.
What word will MacMahon learn next week? All right. Thank you for listening to Collective Podcast. Thank you to Bontemps and MacMahon. Thank you to Bruce and Jackson, our producers. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again next week.
Adios, amigos.